Local governments do a lot of the heavy lifting to deliver services to citizens. We're talking garbage pickup, transit, public housing, the list goes on and on. And now, added to the cost of all that, a public health emergency. How badly might it blow up municipal budgets? Let's find out. We're going to ask. In Brockville, Ontario, in the mayor's office, there's Jason Baker. He is the mayor of the city of 1,000 Islands. In Kitchener, Ontario, in his office, Craig Dyer, chief financial officer for the region of Waterloo. And here in the downtown of the provincial capital, there's Enid Slack. She is the director of the Institute on Municipal Finance and Governance at the U of T's Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy. Good to welcome all of you to our broadcast tonight, and we want to start by putting up a chart to show what COVID-19 has done to the finances of many of the municipalities in this country. We can start with Toronto, which is facing a monthly budgetary shortfall thanks to COVID of $166 million on an operating budget north of $13 billion. That's bigger than, of course, half the provinces in the country. The federal capital, the capital of the country, is facing a $30 million plus shortfall on a budget of almost $4 billion. The city of Edmonton in Alberta faces a $13 million monthly shortfall on a budget of $3 billion. And in Vancouver, they're facing nearly a $20 million a month shortfall on a budget of $1.6 billion. Enid Slack, let me get you in here first. Give us a bit of a list of all of the different revenue streams, for example, here in Ontario's capital city, that have been affected by the COVID-19 crisis.
Well, Steve, it really is a crisis, and it's really impacting municipalities, as you've said. I mean, on the expenditure side, you've got public health expenditures, you've got emergency services, social services, finding shelter beds, and then you've got IT systems that have to be changed for people to work remotely. But the biggest impact is on the revenue side. And municipalities' main source of revenue is the property tax, which can account for up to half of their total revenues. And many municipalities across Canada, indeed most of them, have brought in property tax deferrals. In other words, when you get your tax bill, you don't have to pay it for 60 or 90 days. There's no interest, no penalties. So the interest and penalty revenues are lost, but also the property taxes aren't coming in. User fees are really affected, particularly in the large cities that have big transit systems. Transit fare revenues are way down because, of course, transit use is down. And so you've got those user fees, you've got building permit fees, you've got recreational facilities, the fees there. So that water bills also are being deferred. So there's a big hit to the main sources of revenues for municipalities.
Craig Dyer, you've got a sophisticated transit system in the Waterloo region. People aren't taking it like they used to. What's that doing to the region's revenues these days?
Well, that's correct, Steve. And I agree wholeheartedly with Dr. Slack's comments. Our impacts here at the region are about a $5 million a month revenue loss, and about 70% of that relates to transit. Council has put in place a free transit service basically for the months of April and May. And so that alone is about a $3.5 million revenue shortfall for us. In addition, costs relating to personal protective equipment, to additional cost for shelters, cleaning, all that is putting us in a situation where I think for, municipal finance professionals across the province and country, we have kind of three sets of challenges right now that we're dealing with. The immediate set is cash flow. So how do we get through the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months dealing with a significant revenue shortfall? Secondly, how does this translate into a year-end deficit? What does that deficit projection look like until the end of the year? And then for a little bit later on, but not too long, we'll have to start looking at what does this mean for our 2021 budgets.
Let me just follow up with you, Craig. Okay, there are certainly additional costs that come as a result of COVID, and you've explained how your revenues are down because of COVID. But I wonder whether, for example, the libraries are closed. There are presumably other services you've had to shut down. Have you laid any people off and therefore are saving on those salaries at the same time?
Yes, absolutely. 3 or 4 weeks ago, we closed our libraries, we closed our museums. Most of our buildings are closed to the public. And so that does generate some savings. The region of Waterloo has, over the last couple of weeks, provided layoff notices in the area of about 400 employees. And overall, the cost containment measures that we've put in place have allowed us at this point to offset about 60% of that revenue shortfall. So right now, on a net basis, we think we're down about $2 million per month right now, but we recognize that that could change as the rest of the year plays out.
All right, I mean, my suspicion is people have a pretty good sense because they hear so much about it of what's happening in the bigger cities, Toronto, Ottawa, Mississauga, Waterloo, Kitchener, Guelph, etc. They may not know as much about what's happening to the budgets of smaller places, and that's why we've got His Worship, the Mayor of Brockville, Jason Baker, on the program tonight. Your Worship, a little background if we could first. What's the population of Brockville?
It's about 22,000 people.
And what's your annual budget?
It's in the neighborhood of $60 million.
60 million. And you've been the mayor for how long?
This is my first term. So I've been on council since 1997, but this is my first term as mayor.
Okay, so you've been in the mayor's chair for
a little over a year and a half.
Almost 2 years, right? Okay. Well, how are you managing? How are you faring? How's the budget faring?
Well, I think it's safe to say that the situation in Brockville is proportional to what you're hearing from the region. Everything is relative. And so we're in a very similar situation. We've done the same types of things that Chris was outlining in Brockville. We shut down many of our facilities, and we have laid off, approximately 15% of our employee base. But as Chris would attest to, the savings on payroll don't necessarily come off immediately, as many employees who are being temporarily laid off will opt to take vacation pay before going on to employment insurance. So the savings don't kick in with a pen stroke, and certainly the loss of revenues have been that immediate. So we're doing everything we can to mitigate as well, but we're falling behind the longer this goes on.
You could argue that in the bigger cities, there are still, the economy is more dynamic and therefore theoretically able to ride through this maybe better than the smaller places are. Can you give us a sense about what this pandemic has done to Brockville as a whole, to the economy as a whole? Is anything still operating, that kind of stuff?
Well, Brockville is in Leeds and Grenville, and we are sort of the urban center of a rural county. And so we have a small manufacturing base. We do have a couple of Fortune 500 companies, but our economy is very much driven by small business, small independent business. And before this hit, our largest taxpayer and one of our largest employers was already leaving our community in a planned shutdown as they were consolidating operations back in the United States. So Eastern Ontario and rural Eastern Ontario specifically, we didn't have a robust economy before this. So if the starting point was at one place for bigger cities, we weren't at that starting place. So we're getting into some murky waters a little faster than others, perhaps.
Enid Slack, as municipalities try to figure out what to do in order to sort of figure themselves out going forward, I wonder what's your advice on whether they should be undertaking those major infrastructure projects at a time like this?
That's a good question, Steve. What's happening in some ways is the opposite. In British Columbia, the province passed some new legislation saying municipalities could borrow from their capital reserves for a period of years. And a lot of places are looking at delaying capital expenditures to meet their operating needs. And, that's very short term. And I understand that. I mean, municipalities, as you've just heard from Craig and the mayor, are facing some serious cash shortfalls. And there's an interest in getting money wherever you can. But the long-term implications are quite serious of that. We talk a lot about the municipal infrastructure deficit in Canada. We're just trying to catch up to meet those infrastructure needs. The recovery is going to depend a lot on investing in municipal infrastructure. And so, it's a short-term fix, but I think it's going to have long-run implications.
You know, one does wonder. You look out at the streets now, and there's not much traffic on the streets. So, in some respects, it's an ideal time to do all that kind of road repair that you might have earlier planned because you're going to be inconveniencing many fewer people. On the other hand, you haven't got the dollars to do it. So, how do you figure all that out?
Well, you know, I think municipalities are fiscally prudent. I think they're good fiscal managers. I think they're going, on average, they're going into this crisis with good fiscal health. But you know, part of that, you know, is cutting into the infrastructure. And I think at some point, other levels of government are going to have to come in and help. And infrastructure is a good place to help.
We'll get to that in a second. Craig, what are you thinking in the region of Waterloo in terms of major infrastructure projects and whether you want to go for it now or put it on pause?
Right. So at this point, we've tried to keep as many projects going forward as possible. The region is a very high growth area. And so our infrastructure needs come in two forms. One is the new infrastructure that's needed to accommodate that growth. And then secondly, all of the existing infrastructure that's already in the ground that has to be renewed and maintained and upgraded. So at this point, most of it is going forward. We are in the process of reviewing our capital program right now, and we'll bring recommendations forward to council, you know, over the course of the next month or so, which will attempt to take into account the immediate need for some of this infrastructure work to be done and try to balance that against, you know, some of the cash flow concerns that we're experiencing.
Now, Mayor Baker, I gather they're having a debate in Toronto right now, in the capital city, about whether or not to proceed with a $1 billion major change on the Gardiner Expressway, moving one of the off-ramps a kilometer down the road, which was the plan. I'm going to assume that you haven't got anything as big as $1 billion in the capital budget that you've got to think about, but what have you got and what are you going to be doing about it?
Well, our revenue at risk has been identified at somewhere north of $10 million. The entirety of our capital program this year is $3 million. So as much as I wouldn't like to face Mayor Tory's decision on the Gardiner Expressway, I wouldn't mind having it as an option. To be deferring. So we have to do the things that need to get done. And in that $3 million, there's not a whole lot of what I would call council wish list projects. This is basic infrastructure maintenance and renewal. And if we defer that this year, one, we run the risk of imminent failure in some limited cases, but we're just passing the cost down the line, and that's not good budgeting. So I don't know that we're going to be taking on too many really large-scale infrastructure projects because that's really a hard decision to make when we don't know the end date of this. But we will be doing all of the things and as many of the capital projects that we can and that we have to do to maintain our city.
I should also ask you, Mayor Baker, are you giving your citizens and your ratepayers a holiday on paying their property taxes? And if so, for how long?
Well, we've worked on our water bills to date. We did an interim tax billing that was due on March the 1st. And so our final tax bill isn't due until August the 1st. So we have a little bit of time. But we are very methodically studying every relief measure before we put it in place for unintended consequences. You know, municipalities, as everybody knows, has very few revenue streams, and we're businesses, and we are going to be in a cash flow pinch. So we have to make sure that we're giving the right amount of instant relief without causing a long-term pain to the same people we're trying to benefit.
Well, it seems that we have a few different options here for municipalities going forward. You can either raise some taxes down the road in order to realize more revenue, given the shortfalls you're facing. You can cut programs so that you don't have to spend the money you used to in the past, or you can go begging to a senior level of government to try to get them to sort of fill the shortfall. And let me get a sense from all three of you about which of those three solutions, and maybe there are others I haven't listed, make the most sense. Enid Slack, why don't you start?
Well, you know, these are difficult times, and I think there's sort of a short run and long run way to look at this. In the short run, we're postponing property taxes and water bills, you know, for several months. And I'm concerned. I think municipalities will make it through 2020 if this doesn't go on too long by cutting some of their expenditures and increasing their borrowing a little bit. But in the long run, that's more of a problem. So in 2021, that's not going to be a great time to raise taxes when people are still paying off their deferred taxes, when people are still trying to get jobs, when businesses have closed. It's going to be very difficult. It's always difficult to raise property taxes. Steve, you and I have talked about that on this show many times. But it's going to be even harder in a situation where people are trying to get back on their feet. Cutting services, again, cities provide major services to people, public health and social services, transit, fire, police, all the things you listed at the beginning. And, a lot of these are mandated. They don't have a lot of discretion to cut some of these services. So we end up looking at things municipalities can cut, which are parks and libraries and those sorts of services. We see this at budget time. Those are the things that always come up for debate. So those aren't great options going forward. And I think, given the severity of the impact, it may be time to look to federal and provincial governments to help out. And again, I'm a big fan of local autonomy and municipalities looking after themselves. But I think these are very unusual times, and we will have to look to the other levels of government for help.
Craig, of the three options I mentioned, or maybe add some others that I didn't, what are you thinking about in Waterloo?
Well, I think, based on conversations that I'm having with my colleagues across the province, I think the big challenge here is that there is no one solution that's going to work for everybody. If we think about the 444 municipalities across this province, big, small, urban, rural, high growth, low growth, it's very difficult to come up with, one pattern of impact across all these municipalities, and therefore, by default, I think there isn't one solution. I think it becomes, for us at the region of Waterloo, I think becomes a combination of, demonstrating that we're prepared to participate in the solution, that we're looking for cost containment, cost reduction wherever possible in order to offset the revenue shortfall and the additional cost that we're incurring. And then secondly, from a provincial and federal point of view, I think there's definitely going to be the need for some type of financial assistance program for municipalities that could take on the form of, perhaps something in terms of an immediate backstop to get us through this year. I think the municipalities that have a transit service are, if I can say, disproportionately impacted, and something I think a little bit different has to be looked at for those municipalities. And then finally, looking ahead into 2021 and beyond, some type of infrastructure stimulus program in order to get the economy going again. And our concern, among our concerns are, to the extent that we have deficits that will need to be funded this year, we're concerned about how those deficits are going to be funded and our ability to participate in infrastructure programs going forward.
I'm going to get to the issue of deficits in a second, but let me get Mayor Baker to weigh in on what of those three options or more you are considering in Brockville.
We have to consider all of them. And there isn't going to be one fix to this solution. We're going to have to rob from 15 different Peters in order to pay Paul this year. And that's what we're looking at. And I think I don't believe we're unique in rural Eastern Ontario than we are in other parts of the province. But I would say this, I don't know how much comfort our area of the province takes from Mayor Tory's assertion that what's good for Toronto is good for Ontario. Sometimes we feel like they don't even know we exist down here. So we have to take a few different looks at things. Our economy isn't as dynamic or diverse as others. We have a transit system here in Brockville, albeit a very small one. And it brings additional challenges in that they're half-size buses. So we're putting more buses on the road just to make sure that social distancing can take place on those. So we're still getting our head around the size of the problem before we can start mitigating it. But some early communication from both levels of government on whether a white knight will ride to the rescue on this or not is going to be key for us, because some of my colleagues, I'm not sure, understand that there's a significant role that municipalities are going to have to play to mitigate this problem themselves. We have a responsibility to do that.
Sure. Let me ask you, Mayor Baker, who that white knight might be, because it just so happens that the Minister of Municipal Affairs, in other words, the cabinet minister responsible for all 444 of Ontario's municipalities, is the former mayor of Brockville. His name is Steve Clark, and he represents your neck of the woods. And I think he was the mayor there when he was all of 20 years old or something like that. Now,
Yes,
presumably, you've got a bat phone direct line to him, do you not?
I do. I do. Every mayor in Leeds and Grenville has a direct line to our MPP, and we did have that long before he was ever a minister. I'm literally sitting in the chair in the office that the minister used to occupy, and it's very comforting to have that direct line to the minister. And I'll give you an example. When we were having trouble with snowbirds returning across the border, Brockville is positioned right in the middle of two international bridges. And so we were having a lot of trouble with snowbirders coming into Brockville, staying overnight, shopping in our stores without practicing the social distancing. We were able to get a hold of the minister and make sure that he was aware and he could make Toronto aware of the size of the problem. So even simple requests like getting the 401 signage lit up to inform travelers returning home not to do this type of thing literally was a phone call away. Mr. Clark has been an exceptional resource in this, as has his government.
Do you think this gives you a leg up over all the other municipalities, given his relationship to your city?
Anyone who knows Mr. Clark would answer that as a firm no. He will not show favoritism to his entire riding. He'll serve the province.
Okay, moving on. We may be under the impression, Enid Slack, I'll go to you first on this. We may be under the impression that cities by law are not permitted to run deficits as, say, the province of Ontario or the federal government are. A, is that true? And B, if it's not exactly true, what is the case?
Well, municipalities are not allowed to budget for a deficit. So they wouldn't have done that for 2020, but obviously they were all going to be running deficits. So they didn't expect that. The law says that they, if they end up running a deficit, they have to pay it back the next year. So that is different than other levels of government. And municipalities can also borrow money while they're waiting for tax revenue to come in. So, yeah, the stream of expenditures doesn't always match when the revenues are coming in. And so you're allowed to borrow money. There are restrictions on that until you're waiting for those taxes to come in.
All right. In which case, would your advice to any municipality in the province right now be, go ahead, run a deficit. Everybody understands these are strange times, and worry about how to pay it back somewhere down the road?
Well, that's difficult because of the paying it back somewhere down the road. As I said before, next year is not going to be necessarily better, in terms of the ability to raise taxes or cut expenditures. So, I think it's a short-term measure that may have to be done to meet cash flow, but keeping in mind that, when you borrow money, it does have to be paid back. And that means raising taxes or cutting expenditures next year. Right.
Craig, we know that in the province of Alberta right now, for example, they are considering allowing municipalities to run deficits in the, in a similar way to the way that the provinces and the federal government can now, temporarily, obviously, not permanently going forward, but temporarily. You think that's a good idea?
I don't think it's a great idea. We want to be in a situation where municipalities and the provincial governments, are in a fiscally sustainable position. I think, one of the great credit strengths of municipalities in Canada is the fact that we can't borrow for operating purposes. We borrow for capital projects and that's it. That I think gives a great deal of comfort to the investors, to those that are investing in municipal bonds to fund those projects. The challenge with budgeting for or having a deficit or budgeting for one is we still have the same limited sources of revenue. We're still turning back to the property tax and to user fees wherever possible in order to make our ends meet with the budget in any given year. So I think in a list of potential solutions. For me, that would be relatively far down on the list.
Your Worship, how about you? Would you like to be able to run a deficit this year?
Well, I don't like answering this question after a CFO answers it, but I happen to agree with them. Our municipality is not interested in asking the province to allow us to run a deficit. We don't know that two levels of government borrowing on behalf of the taxpayers worked out that well. So adding a third isn't great. And to use a sport analogy, it's kind of like punting the football, and you don't win a whole lot of games punting the football.
Right. Enid, is it possible that there's enough revenue in, say, the city's rainy day fund, in the reserve fund, to cover whatever is required to cover this year?
Well, every municipality is going to be different. There's going to be a different answer for each one. Municipalities do have reserves. They do have rainy day funds, but I don't think any of those funds anticipated the issues we're facing today. So yes, it'll take them for a little bit down the road, but certainly not the whole way.
Craig, your rainy day fund in Waterloo, how far will it take you? Well, we have a tax stabilization reserve that has about $15 million in it as of the end of last year. So that's one of the first places that we would look to, if necessary. I think, municipalities are typically accustomed to running relatively small surpluses or deficits at the end of the year. And so in the case of the region of Waterloo, we would typically run a surplus, say, in the 1% to 2%. So somewhere in the, say $5 million range would be, what our typical year-end position would be. A deficit, in the order of magnitude of 2, 3, or 4 times that would be unprecedented and would certainly, wipe out, for lack of a better term, most or all of that rainy day fund that we have set aside.
Understood. Enid, we're hearing lots of stories, of course, of businesses that aren't going to make it through this pandemic and that are either going to go under now or certainly will by the time it's done. I want to ask you about that for municipalities as well. Can a city or town go broke?
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. I think you've heard from the mayor and from Craig that cities are finding ways to meet the gap that they have by cutting expenditures and using rainy day funds and perhaps a little borrowing. So, technically, I suppose they can, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, Vancouver got close, right? They mused out loud, the mayor did, about possibly going under. And I know he walked it back, but still, it did put the idea in a bunch of people's heads. Is it an option?
I think that he did walk it back. I think that's important to note. Municipalities aren't really going bankrupt. We don't have a lot of history of municipalities going bankrupt unless we go back to the 1930s. But that was a different situation, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay, Your Worship, we do know, for example, that there were times, and I can recall it, when Brian Mulroney was Prime Minister of Canada back in the 1980s, Newfoundland and Saskatchewan almost got to the point where they were right up against the wall and they needed an emergency stabilization from the feds or else they weren't going to be able to pay their bills. Is your municipality in that predicament yet?
Not yet, no. Our reserve situation is pretty good this year, but we've been spending the last 3 or 4 years trying to build up our reserves to get them more in line with the provincial average. And so, we're partway through that project, and now we're going to be using the reserves at a much higher level than we anticipated. So we'll be certainly in a good situation in that we will be having a surplus from 2019 that will be the first money spent on this deficit. But we're going to have to take a look and follow this very closely. And again, the hardest thing for us to try and get our heads around is how long we're going to be in this situation. So 4 or 5 weeks to this point, judging by what the Premier was saying yesterday, it looks like at least another 4 weeks before the trickle, as he says it, starts to happen. So we have to accommodate that. And our reserve position is certainly going to be much worse in 2021 and 2022 than we hoped it would be.
Let me follow up with this. With just a few minutes to go, I'll get each of you to weigh in on this. The federal government and the provincial government, basically for almost 5 straight weeks, have had their first ministers come to the podium every day and announce a new program of some kind. Yesterday, it was help for post-secondary students from the federal government. We've heard, about nursing homes. We've heard about community organizations. We've heard about those who are unemployed. One thing we have not yet heard from is relief for municipalities. And I'm wondering, Your Worship, if you think that's in the offing.
Well, we're working with the assumption that it's going to be a challenge for the provincial government and the federal government to do that because of the amount of money they're spending during this pandemic. So we're hoping and we're expecting that there will be something. The stimulus packages in the past have really revolved around infrastructure renewal and 1/3 buy-in from a municipality. I don't know how successful that's going to be and what municipalities will be able to afford a 1/3 buy-in. I think there's a conversation we need to have with the upper levels of government about potential uploading. That's what's going to happen, or that's what's going to assist municipalities of all sizes, regardless of their situations. There's certain services I think we can have a conversation about shifting who is the supplier of the funds for those in 2021 and beyond.
Enid, they're bailing out the unemployed, they're bailing out small business, they're bailing out childcare centers, they're bailing out lots of institutions right now. Nothing for municipalities yet. Do you think they should?
Well, I think they've started with individuals and businesses, and that makes sense. And I think there may be some need to help out municipalities. But I think, a pandemic or a crisis like this lays bare some of the structural problems that we have. And I know we have been talking about the whole who does what exercise, even before the pandemic. What should the federal role be in cities? What should the provincial role be? What should the municipal role be? So getting at what the mayor is saying, who should be funding social services and public health and these kinds of services? And I think we need to look at that again. We needed to look at it before the pandemic, but as I say, the pandemic really showed us some of the problems with the system we have. And I think we all at 3 levels of government have to revisit who does what and who pays for it.
Craig, what's your view on whether or not this pandemic actually could serve as a constructive thing in order to get all levels of government to figure out who ought to be doing what and how to pay for it?
Well, I think that's absolutely the case, and I totally concur with Dr. Slack. I certainly I haven't been part of all the conversations, but my understanding is that there is a significant level of interaction, conversation, discussion happening between all 3 levels of government. Not to mention FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, are all working together on this. I think the province and federal governments have appropriately looked to provide the support and stimulus to individuals and businesses and various sectors at this point. My sense is that it's a matter of time before something is announced in the municipal context.
So if I read you right, you would love it if Steve Clark picked up the phone, called you and said, "Hey, would you like a check for $50 million to get through the next few months?"
Well, it would certainly give us, some way of moving forward, and planning for the rest of this year, and starting to look ahead for what 2021 is going to look like. The region The region of Waterloo came out of 2019, I think, in a very strong position. Development, building permits, development charge collections were all very strong. And we need to start turning our minds to what does the scope and scale and pace of recovery look like in order so that we can rebuild the economic foundation of this province and this country.
Very good point. Chad, if you would you mind giving me a three-shot so I can thank, there we go, all of our guests. Jason Baker, the mayor of Brockville, Craig Dyer, the CFO for the region of Waterloo, Enid Slack, the director of the Institute on Municipal Finance and Governance at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy, which is the longest named post-secondary institution in the world, I'm sure, at the University of Toronto. It's good of all of you to join us on TVO tonight. Thanks so much and good luck all.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.